What is inflation and why does it affect you? Inflation is defined in textbooks and educational institutions as the widespread and sustained increase in the level of prices in the market over a period of time. When the general price level rises, it basically means that your money is worth less after a period of time. In other words, inflation is when everything gets more expensive and your money is worth less. So every day and all the time, your money is worth less because it's just paper and doesn't hold intrinsic value. Money only has value because people believe it does. So why is your money worth less and less? What did you do to deserve this? Think of money as a commodity. If there's a lot of supply, the money is worth less. If there's a lot of demand, the money is worth more. So far, so good. But what would happen if you decided to print more bills? They would be worth less because there would be more bills, and the total value would be distributed among more bills. This is the main cause of inflation. Central banks print money, which devalues the currency. And why does this happen? Because it's the biggest scam of all time, and it's done to everyone. In reality, money is just paper and truly holds no inherent value. We calculate its value based on what we feel when we go to buy something. A clear proof of this is that when you used to go to the store with $5, you could buy a bottle of Coke and some snacks. But now, with $5, you can barely buy one snack. This also depends a lot on the country you live in. In Venezuela, for example, they currently hold the world record for the highest hyperinflation in history. We see bills thrown on the streets, and to buy a roasted chicken, you need to carry a backpack full of bills because otherwise you can't afford it. This is an excellent example. There are too many bills in circulation and they are worth less because there are so many. The government is like a person who borrows money from the central bank. The central bank lends whatever amount of money at an interest rate of 103%. But in this case, the government is addicted to borrowing from the bank. It doesn't have money to pay its debts, but continues to borrow. What happens is that, with each loan they ask the central bank for, the money is worth less and less because the bank lends out this money. Your external debt increases, and because there are more bills in the country, the money is worth less. Suppose there were initially 10 bills representing the country's total value. Now, with a loan of 10 more bills, there are 20 bills, and these 20 bills are worth less for obvious reasons. Literally, inflation is a hidden tax and one of the most complex ways the government has to disguise it. This happens even in the best countries. The printing and minting of money is called seigniorage. Printing bills and minting coins is not the only cause of inflation, but it is undoubtedly the main one. In general, a country's economic policy is divided into two main areas: fiscal policy and monetary policy. Of course, there's much more to it, but in broad strokes it involves printing money, issuing government bonds, U.S. Treasury bonds being the most well-known, and manipulating the country's reference interest rate. The interest rate is highly relevant to our topic because when you apply for credit, if the reference rate is high, loans will generally have higher rates. Conversely, if the central bank keeps rates low, loans will generally have lower rates. Credit is another form of money, and if people are addicted to borrowing, the consequences would be inflation and overall private debt. Therefore, high interest rates equal less inflation, low interest rates equal more inflation. Note, negative inflation is called deflation, which is when money increases in value, something that almost never happens in reality because for this to occur, the backing would have to be greater than the amount of money, and as mentioned, this doesn't happen. The second economic policy is fiscal policy, and each government has its institution in charge of managing taxes. Broadly speaking, the two goals of fiscal policy are tax collection and government spending management. This includes subsidies. Logically, if tax collection is very high, there will be less money in circulation, and therefore, it will increase in value. On the other hand, if tax collection is low, there will be more money in circulation, and its value will decrease. Regarding government spending, if government spending is high, it leads to more money entering circulation and reduces its value. And if you think it's unnecessary spending, if government spending is low, it leads to less money entering circulation and increases its value. In broad strokes, this is how the government can control inflation, but mainly central banks have this function, although the Revenue Service can also help. but generally, they are only there to collect as much as they can, and unfortunately, they are good at that. There are external factors that generate inflation. The one that comes to mind the most is the increase in global oil prices. If the price of oil goes up, then everything tends to go up since almost everything we consume is transported and manufactured with oil. No matter how eco-friendly you are, when moving from one place to another, we are all affected when oil is expensive. But at the same time, this reflects that the economy is growing. If there is a lot of oil consumption, there is growth. Now, all central banks and people related to the world of inflation say that low inflation is beneficial for the economy because it reflects that people are consuming in large quantities, resulting in more money in circulation. But if there's a lot of money in circulation, its value decreases, resulting in inflation. The opposite case is deflation. Someone might think it's the best thing in the world since your money increases in value in real terms, but deflation can result in something more dangerous than hyperinflation. As money becomes increasingly valuable, people don't want to spend it because they know it will be worth more the next day, and they fall into the illusion that they will finally be able to buy the latest iPhone they desire. So everyone stops buying things, and since the economy doesn't move, you get a very dangerous economic crisis. This situation is even worse if you owe money because the money you have to pay back is worth more than what you borrowed initially. Conversely, if you buy a car on an interest-free installment plan, the payments you make will be worth less if inflation is high. In such a case, buying on credit is advantageous. It's also justifiable that the money you have today is worth less tomorrow due to one of the most basic premises of finance, the time value of money. Essentially, they're telling you that $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow because that dollar can be spent today. So, if you lend $1 today and get repaid the same dollar in a month, what's the point of lending it? The logical thing would be to want to be paid the dollar plus interest. Thus, the mere fact that you have to pay interest on borrowed money generates inflation since you want more for $1. The total amount, the dollar plus interest, is the price of acquiring that dollar today. Let's say you're paid 10% more for your dollar a month later. So, $1.10 is the 1-month price for acquiring that dollar today, and this could be considered inflation. Therefore, credit is one of the most important causes of rising inflation. Hence, the best thing is to learn to live with today's money and not tomorrow's money. Basically, tomorrow's money is debt. But remember the most important thing: inflation is a substantial increase in prices caused by an improper expansion of the currency or bank credit. This was our video for today, a slightly different topic. So I'd like to know if you enjoy videos like this. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. See you next week.